All right, class, let's get going with our third boards here. Post-classical 600 to 1400 CE. How did the conquests of the Mongols unify Asia? And the Mongols, no one can underestimate the effects of the Mongol Empire from Mongolia in the 1200s. But first, let's back up. Japan was very isolated. So last time we talked about China, so Japan, which would become very formal in the 19th century. In the beginning, Japan was very isolated. 5th century CE, one of the only dynasty rulers, the Yamamoto clan, came to rule. So this is when Japan started to build up their empires. Practices Shinto religion, nature, and all of the forces pertaining to nature. So the Shinto religion was all about nature. The 6th and 7th century, China influenced Japan, and they brought over a lot of the customs, cultural, and religious ideas. In 1192, Fujiwara family, they take over in Japan. Feudalism is formed. And feudalism, and it's interesting how in the during the Middle Ages in Europe, feudalism was forming in the exact same manner. Feudalism in Japan began with the shogun, which was a military leadership, daimyo, which was land that was given out, and then the samurai had the code of Bushido, in which he had to give protection to the shogun for land. And this was very, very similar to feudalism in Europe. All right, in India, Delhi Sultanate, the Islam made its way to India in 1206. Islam and Hinduism share Indian subcontinent, and obviously conflicts arose between those two religions, and they still do today. But in 1206 is when Islam finally made its way into the Indian subcontinent. Now, the Mongols, what are pertaining to our essential questions. Genghis Khan had tremendous military and organizational skills, and he united Mongolia. Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific to Europe, so it was the largest land area of any empire of all time. Using superior horses, the Golden Horde was able to conquer vast amounts of territory. Vast amounts of territory. The Mongols were great diffusers of culture. Most cities and towns were given a choice to give in to the Mongols when they were riding across the land or be destroyed. Most allowed to survive, and so they shared their culture. So when the Mongols were riding across Asia, they would ride into your town and they'd say, you either, give in to us and we will rule you, or we'll completely destroy your entire town or city. And so most of the towns and cities, had heard about the Mongols coming or whatever. They heard about the, terrible things they did. And so they said, yes, we will capitulate to your rule. And that's what they did. And thus, being as the Mongols moved from Mongolia to the west, they brought with them the cultures from all the different areas that they were able to conquer. Now, Russia, which is part of Europe, developed much slower due to the Mongol rule. So when the Russians in that area of what is present-day Moscow were taken over by the Mongols, and by the time they finally left, they were much farther behind European countries like France, Spain, and England, who at this time were starting to create monarchies in their rightful kingdoms. Now, the Mongols' greatest impact was that the world trade and cultural diffusion increased dramatically. So the trade back and forth, cultural diffusion, as brutal and forbidding the Mongols were, the Mongols brought the world together. So by the 1400s, the Mongols came through in the late 1200s. By the 1400s, the ideas and the pathways, the roads that were set up, the trade routes that were set up by the Mongols had brought the world together. Now, Africa, eastern coast of Africa, started trading with the Indian Ocean. That became a spreading point for Islam. Ghana and Malawi in West Africa built up their empires. Greatest of the Mali rulers, Mansa Musa, built up the capital of Timbuktu. You might have heard of that, that name before, Timbuktu. Timbuktu was a great capital in the inner part of Africa and the trade routes. These empires were rich with gold, and the Islamic Empire eventually took them over. So the Islamic Empire had moved across North Africa. It was quite an undertaking to cross the Sahara Desert, but eventually the Islamic Empire has moved south and into sub-Saharan Africa. The Benin culture of present-day Nigeria perfected the bronze sculpture, which was the best of any early civilizations. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of what was going on in Asia and Africa in the 12 to roughly 1400s, 1450 time frame. Remember, history's no mystery. Take good notes.